revolutionized cryptography, the modern field of computer science.
Key figure of our century.
So you came up with this idea which is now the foundation of modern computer science.
At the onset of World War II in 1939, the Axis powers used encrypted messages that seemed unbreakable. A British mathematician, Alan Turing, was instrumental in creating a machine that broke these encrypted codes. By breaking these messages, Turing gave the Allied forces an advantage and a triumphant victory in the war. After the war, Turing's work became the foundation of modern-day computer science. Unfortunately, Turing fell harm to the nation's homophobic laws in 1941, ultimately leading to his suicide. His death not only showcased the tragedy of homophobic laws, but also slowed the progression of the computer science field for decades to come. In the period after World War I, Hitler slowly rose to power, using propaganda to rally the masses in Germany. On September 1, 1939, Hitler invaded Poland, starting World War II. Throughout the war, Germans used a machine known as the Enigma to send thousands of encrypted messages daily between the Army, Air Force, and Navy. The Enigma machine resembled a typewriter, but contained a series of rotors that rotated each time a key was pressed. The machine used a plugboard that changed the letters, making the writing unreadable. This system provided 159 quintillion possible combinations, making the Germans believe the war code was unbreakable. Since the Enigma machine allowed the Axis powers to send messages securely, it became one of their major assets during the war. These messages were indecipherable by the Allies, allowing Germany to easily bombard them with surprise attacks. The German torpedoes were sinking so many supply ships that carried provisions to Britain that Prime Minister Churchill's analysts worried that his country would soon starve because of the German Enigma machine.
During the war, the only time that he had sleepless nights was when he was thinking about submarine warfare.
The fear of another oncoming war caused Polish mathematicians to attempt to break the Enigma code before the war had even started, but their research yielded little results. When Poland was invaded, they shared the information they had accumulated with Britain. The British quickly became aware that without breaking the Enigma code, the Allies would continue to struggle in the war. They turned to their government code and cipher school, known as Bletchley Park, for help. This would soon become known as the place where Alan Turing broke the Enigma code. Alan Turing was one of the mathematical greats, gaining prominence from his time at Cambridge and Princeton. He worked part-time for the British government code and cipher school as a crypt analyst before World War II broke out. In 1939, Turing accepted a full-time job where he worked to decipher the Enigma code used by Germany. When Turing arrived at Bletchley Park, human computers were trying to decipher the Enigma code, but he wanted to create a machine to break the code. With the help from his colleague Gordon Welchman, Turing created a machine known as the bomb in 1940. The bomb was an electromechanical machine comprised of the equivalent of 36 different Enigma machines. When the machine was turned on, each of the 3 rotors moved at a rate mimicking the Enigma itself, checking on approximately 17,500 possible positions till it found a match. The objective of the bomb was to try to decipher the German U-boat communications and significantly reduce the work of the codebreakers. In June of 1941, the first real-time Enigma message was broken. By cracking the German U-boat communications, U-boat positions were revealed, allowing the convoys to dodge attacks while crossing the Atlantic. Because of the bomb, signals continued to be intercepted, translated to English, and were able to be read by the British Admiralty within 15 minutes. German coded messages continued to be read throughout the war, giving the Allies a much-needed advantage. By 1943, Turing's bomb machine was cracking a staggering total of 84,000 Enigma messages each month. Turing's triumph in breaking the Enigma code allowed the Allied forces to weaken the U-boat hold on the North Atlantic. Without this advantage, Operation Overlord, the plan to open a Western front in Europe, and the subsequent D-Day invasion of June of 1944 would have been delayed by more than a year. Because the North Atlantic was the route that ammunition, fuel, food, and troops traveled through to reach Britain from the United States, any delay in the timing of the invasion, even a delay of less than a year, would have put Hitler in a stronger position to withstand the Allied assault.
If it hadn't been for Turing breaking into the version of naval Enigma that was used by the North Atlantic U-boats, Britain would have been starved into defeat very probably during 1941.
It is also estimated by Professor Jack Copeland that without the breaking of the U-boat Enigma codes, the war would have continued on for an estimated 2 to 4 more years, causing another 14 to 21 million deaths. Prime Minister Winston Churchill singled Turing out as a man whose work contributed most to defeating the Germans. "I won't say that what Turing did made us win the war," his statistical clerk Jack Good said, "but I dare say we might have lost without him." After World War II, Turing went on to invent the automatic computing engine, which became the precursor to the modern computer. Although his work was groundbreaking, he faced great scrutiny in the field. Throughout his life, homosexuality was illegal, causing Turing to hide his sexuality from the public.
"They can be anywhere. We ought to know we've arrested all of them. And you will be caught, because this is one thing you cannot get away with."
In 1952, the British police became aware of Turing's hidden sexuality after they investigated a break-in at his home. He was arrested and convicted of having committed an act of gross indecency. Instead of prison time, he was placed on probation for a year and had to receive chemical castrations by injection, an attempt by the government to rid Turing of his homosexual thoughts.
A chemical which caused him to grow breasts, made him impotent, probably made him put on weight. We're talking about a man who was always careful about his body. This must have been totally horrific.
Turing tried to work towards his goals in advancing computing at the government communication headquarters, but even this was difficult as his arrest caused him to lose security clearance at his governmental job. Despite Turing's effort, his life was a slow, sad descent into grief and madness.
He could not do in public the way he felt entirely natural to him to behave. Amongst the possible ways that the state can constrain a person, this is surely one of the harshest.
With Turing feeling outed by his community and unable to do the work he loved, he committed suicide on June 8, 1954, at the young age of 41. According to Ferguson, if Turing had not been outed as a homosexual and subjected to public humiliation and the loss of credibility within the country he was largely responsible for saving, he might not have killed himself. Not only did the conviction take Turing's life, but it also cost the computer science field decades of progress. Because of Alan Turing's death, the English computing industry became less competitive with the one in the US. It is said that if Turing hadn't been subjected to this treatment, he would have made contributions to the theory of building secure or unhackable systems, and he would have made new contributions to computability and decidability. Alan Turing's work with Bletchley Park was kept secret until 1970, and the full impacts of his efforts were not declassified until 1990. As a result, he was not rightly honored during his lifetime for his many achievements, most importantly for providing critical code-breaking technology that was instrumental to the Allied triumph over Germany in World War II, and for creating the foundation of the computer science field. Eric Brown says that Turing is so fundamental to so much of computer science that it is hard to do anything with computers that isn't somewhat influenced by his work. Turing's work led to the first computer, and his theories on computing are still being used today. Without the work of Turing, the computing trajectory would have been entirely different, or at least delayed. In 2009, Prime Minister Gordon Brown issued a formal apology to Turing, saying Turing was an exceptional man with a brilliant mind, who deserves to be remembered and recognized for his fantastic contributions to the war effort and his legacy to science. In 2015, Turing was given a posthumous royal pardon for his homosexual conviction. I am sorry that he and so many others were treated in this way right up until 1990s when the policy was rightly changed. Even though progress has been made, prejudice continues to be a major problem in our society.
Discrimination is always going to affect people's emotional states, regardless of whether it's discrimination against race or gender or almost anything else. But we have to realize in many parts of the world, being gay or lesbian can be a reason for people to be killed. There are places in Africa and in the Middle East where it could be a death sentence. And so there are people whose situation is as bad, if not worse, as that Alan Turing faced in the early 1950s.
Alan Turing is one of the most influential men of his time. His triumph with breaking the German Enigma code saved millions of lives and contributed to the Allies defeating the Germans in World War II. Ironically, Turing's war effort saved millions of people from being unlawfully persecuted for their homosexual thoughts during World War II. But Turing himself was a victim of the tragedy of homophobic laws present in his own country. This tragedy not only took Turing's life, but also caused the computer science field to be set back by decades.
His track record was so good that you can be sure that if he hadn't died, like the next thing he came up with would be world-shattering importance. But we'll never know what that was. That's part of the tragedy. We'll never know.